Welcome, and we're live, Susan. We're actually live, so we can't giggle anymore, and we can't. Because we've just been on before having a chat, and we were about to go live, and then my dog Sherlock decided to be very vocal. So Sherlock's actually sitting on my lap. So if you see him moving around, then you know what it is. So Susan and I have been obviously giggling and trying to prepare ourselves for this very serious interview. But Susan, I am so happy that you're joining us today. And just a little bit of background. I'm just going to do a little bit of an intro. My name's Dr. Kate Watchman-Brown, and I'm the founder of Mini-Me Yoga. I'm also head of the Modern Mystery School in the UK and EU. And Susan is one of my amazing people. So you may have been following the interviews that I've been doing, and I'm really lucky to have lots of amazing people that surround me. I mean, honestly, the more I read about them and the more I know about them, the more I'm in awe. And it's like, oh my goodness. So Susan is another one of my amazing people in my life. And Susan heads up, she's the lead of Mini-Me Yoga in Ireland. But she also does a huge amount of other things. So she runs her own and owns her own drama and speech school. She also sits on the board in Ireland and is an examiner for speech and drama. I think I got that right, Susan, and you're going to do an explanation now. She also does lots of other things. Her passion for children's mental and emotional well-being is huge. And I've known Susan since 2014. And, just to watch her and her drive to help children and parents is phenomenal. So I wanted to get her on and to share some of her insights so that, we can share in her expertise. So Susan, I did a little bit of an intro there. But I wonder if you could just fill in the gaps where, where I missed out, and just give us a little bit of background about you.
Okay, well, yes, Kate, you did. You gave her, very much an insight. So I'll give you a further insight into what I do and who I am. So I am based in a place called County Cork in Ireland, in the southern half of Ireland. I run my own drama school with the last 12 years. So I've been teaching drama and speech for over 20 years, but running my own school for the last 12. And from that, of course, I meet children, I meet teens, I meet adults every day of the week. And what I love mostly about what I do is that the variety of people that I meet, number one, and the age range. You know what I mean? My day can start with children as young as 2.5 to 4-year-olds, and my day can finish with an adult, which is having a one-to-one session with me. And we become more, there's a friendship forms as well as actually being their teacher as such. There is definitely a friendship forms, and, many now I meet years later, and they will, even children I meet years later and have grown up, they go, oh my God, do you remember? And I go, oh my goodness, no, like it's so long ago that I taught you that I feel like, so that is one side of what I do. Also, I am an examiner for the Irish Board of Speech and Drama. So I would go to various locations within Ireland and examine children and teens in speech and drama exams. And then on top of that, I am also a Mini-Me Yoga ambassador for Cork in County Cork. And since last year, I am team lead for Ireland. So many hats, as they say, besides being a parent myself. I love what I do. I love, meeting people. I love getting to teach people. And some people would often say, like I don't notice time going by when I do what I do.
It's amazing, isn't it? And it's something that I think we're all, lucky to do when we get that thing that we just somehow, it brings us that inner joy. It's like, like you say, time doesn't exist, and it's just like just like a complete immersion of this is something I really want to do, and we get to do that day to day. It's pretty special. What I wanted to ask, so I did a little bit of drama when I was at school, as most children do. And it obviously was one of my favorite classes, because, you know, you get to express yourselves, you get to have fun. And I used to think about it like that. I thought, oh, it's just a fun thing that I'm doing. It wasn't until I went, you know, went into my adulthood that I realized how much it had helped me build my confidence, how much it had helped me find my voice, how it had helped me role play for different situations that I was going to come to in life. So could you tell me a little bit of the background or the science behind it? Why is drama and speech so important for children?
I suppose, Kate, there's two different sides to it. So one side is that, you know, we all have wonderful imaginations, and like, you know, children especially actually have the most wonderful imaginations, and you're drawing that out of them whilst they're learning. If they're in a group, especially, they're learning about teamwork. They're learning how to be spontaneous, because we would do what's called improvisation. So you're given a scenario, and next thing you have to start acting immediately. So when you take that context into real life, we all know that, you know, at any day, anything can happen and things change. And, you know, we're in different situations every single day of the week. So that improves your skill and builds your skill to have the confidence to be able to actually go, you know what, it's okay if I do this now. I would always say to children, I would first of all always allow a child to develop at their own time. So even though we might be doing a group work, then various children you'll see develop. So you might have the child that is very outspoken in class. You might have the child that has taken in every single bit of information that you have given them, but may not speak up about it. And then you have the child that, you know, is happy to participate when they're asked to participate. And then when they're not, they're happy to sit back and just watch and listen also. So you're dealing with all different sorts of levels as such as the confidence comes through. But I know when I started, I was a young girl when I started drama and was doing multiple activities at the time. And then I came to about the age of 10 or 11, and I remember saying, no, it's only speech and drama I want to do. I dropped sport, I kept dancing, and I kept drama, because I knew for me, that's what, when I went up on this to stand up, to say, to do anything in the class, be it to do storytelling, be it to do public speaking skills, then I knew this is actually where I like to be. Yes, we will all get nerves, but nerves are good, is what I will always say to children. Nerves are good. That's what gives you the drive and the energy to get up and actually do it. And this same thing applies as we move forward in our lives. So because you've learned as a young child to stand up and to be it perform, or be it to speak about a topic, or to do public speaking skills, then you will carry that through all of your life. Like, to many adults you'll meet along the way, and I have them on a one-to-one scenario, that it's like they've been asked to do a public speaking event, and it's like as if you've given them the sentence of death. They're like, what? I have to stand up and speak to a crowd? Oh my goodness. And they're having to relearn the skills, you know, again. And then you take an 8-year-old child and you say, okay, so will you stand up there? And yeah, no problem, up I go. So the science behind it is that some people, we all have confidence within us. And what I like to see is that I always say to people, it's not the external confidence, it's having the internal confidence and the self-esteem within you. You can decide when to use it and when not to use it, but it's your own internal confidence that is extremely important. And that's why even in our drama school, then everybody gets an opportunity, and I will always say everybody has a chance to shine, but in their own time. So It doesn't necessarily have to be all together. It doesn't necessarily have to be always on a stage. It can be something, it can be as simple as, and I have seen this happen, that a child might be inside in a school and they've never spoken up about a topic in the class when teacher would ask a question. They've never had confidence to put up their hand and say, no, I actually know that. And then all of a sudden they begin to grow inside with confidence, and the hand goes up and they're like, well, actually, I'm okay with saying this out loud. And this would be even in one of the games that we play through Minimi Yoga, the I Am game. Like, I have seen children where when we start, they're like, if you walk towards them with cards to choose a card, they will go, and I will always give them the option. I will say, would you like me to select it for you today? And will I say what it is? And you get the nod of the head. And I've left it open. And then I've seen it that 5 or 6 weeks later, after I've come back and have them on several occasions, then all of a sudden, I remember one particular girl a number of years ago, her hand came over my hand and she went, no, it's my turn. And I went, is it today? And she went, yes. And I was like, okay, here you go. But because I left it open-ended for her to always know that she knew that at any stage it was, if she wanted to do it, she could, and she had the choice, but it was up to her as to when that choice came around. And for her, it was at that point that she decided, no, I actually want to do it today. So I'm a firm believer of always leave the option open, always, leave it on a positive rather than a negative. And then someone's confidence within them will grow over time. It will grow over time.
So it's really interesting. I read somewhere, and it's something that you just mentioned, that if people are faced with having to do public speaking, apparently it's the number one fear. Mm-hmm. It's the actual number one fear that people actually fear that over many of the things that I can think about that I would,
We've all been at occasions, be it a wedding, be it, be it a christening, be it at a dinner party, at a birthday, and someone goes, oh, speech, and someone's going, me, speech? Stand up and talk? Oh, no. And, I've definitely been at events over the years that, you see people physically shaking. You see people, nearly throwing up before they get up to actually do the speech. And that's an awful place to be. That's an awful, awful way to feel inside before you have to do something. So it's about what I do and with people that I have is that it's the step-by-step approach, and that, okay, first of all, it's good to have nerves. They're not a bad thing. I can actually use these to my advantage to give me more energy. And I would always say to people, sometimes forget about the crowd of people that are in front of you. Pick a spot at the back of the room. Just pick that spot, or pick that one face that's at the back of the room, and you are delivering to just them and only them, and forget about all the rest inside it. And people, I had a lady one time, a number of years ago, her task was to deliver to a company, and she had never done any sort of public speaking in her life. And she was like, I cannot believe I'm at this stage of my life and I've been asked to deliver a presentation. What am I going to do? And I was like, it's a step-by-step approach. We're going to do it. And over time, in the end, she delivered a presentation to her colleagues, to her co-workers, which was the hardest task, as I said to her. And they were astounded at the end. They were like, oh my goodness, where has this lady come from? But as I said to her, it was always there. All you needed was some guidance. That's all you needed.
And this is important for children, I feel, because one of the things that I have come across just working with children is that they don't always know how to find their voice. People always say, well, children will say if they don't like something, and that's not actually necessarily true. And so for me, I've been in many situations where children have exhibited extreme anger or, some kind of stress, or maybe tears or whatever. And they don't want to voice what it is. Sometimes they don't know what it is, but sometimes they do know what it is and they don't want to voice what it is. So with learning these skills, would you say it's a fair assumption that it's going to help them find their voice, or at least express and let it go in another form?
Yes, because we start off by they actually express themselves through, it might be movement. So it's body movement, and it could be through mime. So mime is whereby, I would often say it's acting without sound. So they first of all begin to express themselves through their bodies. And then you add in the voice at a later stage. So by that way, by the time they get to, we would deal with different emotions. And so I would give them scenarios and how to, there might be various scenarios, and okay, well, how would we deal with this? And then I might say, well, now imagine that you're in a happy situation in that circumstances. How would you react? And let's say you're angry at the situation, how would you react? So we would do even like an emotions, like even nowadays we do it on emojis. So I would have different emojis, and because children a stark research that I looked at recently, the communications of children under the 18, over 50% of their communication is through messaging and through actual social media outlet, rather than speaking person to person to somebody, which is astounding, absolutely astounding. And so that's why I use emojis, because if I show a happy emoji face to children, oh yeah, they go. And or if I show an angry one, then it's the red head one, and they're all going, oh, that's the angry one. So different cues, because we all learn differently, obviously, we have different methods of learning, be it visual or be it, audio or something, directly. So for that reason, we would go through different scenarios through body movement, first of all, then beginning to do mime, which is a little bit more intense again. And then from there, we go on to do a scene. So that's whereby they're all using both voice and body movement together. And over time, you'll see it build and build. And yes, you will have the child that might be quiet in the scene and might take the lesser role. But what we will do then is that I will add in a mix and go, okay, so those of you that had the lesser role, now you're going to, and I'll step them into a different role completely, whereby, and I will always say that everything that happens within our class is a safe time for you to actually talk. So if you have an opinion, we are all different. And, if we weren't all different, then we would have a very boring world. So it's okay to be different, and it's okay to have your own opinion on something. And from that, then you see them over time begin to express themselves.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked you all this is because I've noticed that in schools across certainly the UK, and I'm not sure if it's Ireland, that they are tending to want to cut funding or cut drama or music and the arts. And for me, that is a mistake, because the arts, as you've so eloquently put it, is that it's a way that we can express. It's a way that we can engage our imagination. It's a way that we can role play and prepare ourselves for all of these different situations that are going to come, ahead of us. And for me, without imagination, we're not going to have all the amazing buildings in the world that we have, or the beautiful clothes that we wear, or the amazing technology instruments that we use. They all come from imagination. So if we've got a stagnant imagination in our next generation, how are they going to invent new things? How, if we're stifling our children's imagination, stifling their creativity, stopping them from expressing themselves, or limiting the amount that they can express themselves, or perhaps try something new, what type of society are we going to, engage in? And for me, that is a major factor for children's mental health and well-being. And so can you now tell us how mental well-being, especially in these times, especially in Ireland, with COVID and how it's impacted, how you see speech, drama and the creative arts supporting children through this?
Oh, Kate, I actually think it's huge, because given the whole past 6 months that everybody has put through, I suppose schools, first of all, to set the scene, so schools in Ireland have only gone back in the past week, about from the middle of last week onwards, schools began to go back. And yes, you have had a huge amount of anxiousness surrounding that, from be it children, parents, grandparents, teachers, especially walking in the door, not knowing either. I described this to somebody last week. It was like as if you asked every child to restart school all over again. So what we call junior infants, which would be the first class in primary school. So it was like as if every child was going back to school this year, and like as if being in junior infants, because it was like a restart button for everybody. And from that, you've had many months of children, being in lockdown and, not being able to see, relatives, close relatives, grandparents, and further extended out from there. But what you did probably have a little bit of is that, and I would feel this over the years of teaching, that I saw children were unable to cope. There was like this constant on button, and they never got a chance to have an off button and to actually see what they like to do, be it that they like to create a little puppet show within their own house, be it that they like to do dress up and, perform as a queen or, whichever, that they actually got a chance to maybe create their own role play within their own place. And you fast forward that into school. Now, since they've gone back to school, of course, they need to catch up on the academic side of things, because many children, have lost out on time academically. But equally, their actual wellness and their whole well-being and their whole connecting with friends, connecting with the teacher, on a basic level, they really have to restart all over again and recreate. And I know from talking to schools here in Ireland, they, for the moment they have been advised, get them back into school, let's park all the extra curriculum things, which would include your drama or your music, or be it your yoga coming into school, park all those for now. And let's just focus on academic and getting them back and getting them talking to each other and playing again. But there's a huge loss on the other side if those things are going to be parked. Now, hopefully they're only going to be parked for a temporary measure, that it's not going to be long term. But I would see it how children learn definitely, like when I'm in class, many children would say, and even teachers that I would be in schools with would consider it, probably stark crazy sometimes, the games that we play and what we do. But the games have a purpose behind them. Only I would know that. Obviously, the children don't know. They see it as fun. But the games have a purpose in that it might be to do with spontaneous. It might be to do with teamwork. It might be to do with developing their speech, but they're having to talk in a group to each other and having so much time. So all these elements are happening. But now you're taking them away for the moment. So children have just, academics, and let's focus on the academics. And I understand that has to be done. But I think a blend together, and I think children learn better. And I've seen this even through teachers that have used various aspects, even through maths games, through English games. They would bring in certain games that we would have played in the drama field, and they would use them in the classroom. And the children are more engaged. The children are very much more engaged. Now, in Ireland, we are lucky a number of years ago, the Department of Education brought in a program called the ASHTR, which was all up surrounding role play and, how children actually do role play. So that is in place from preschool age all the way up as far as senior infants in schools. So in junior infants and senior infants in primary schools, they have a corner every week. Like it might be the doctor's corner, it might be the post office, it might be the hospital. And children are learning because they're playing in through this, and they're learning through this all of the time. So it has been really, really beneficial from that point of view, because it's both the academics and the actual role play learning together. So that is really, really good. But for the older age groups, I do think it is very important for children's creativity, for their general communications, that the likes of drama, the likes of, some people express themselves through music, and or express themselves in the sports, that all those actually stay in place. Because following COVID and following the past 6 months, it's kind of scary, I think, in some sense, when you think of how affected people are going to be. And I don't think we're going to see that just yet. I think it could take, and be it another 6 months, be it 12 months down the road, when you're really going to see more of the effects of the whole COVID situation and, all that goes with it. So it is, I know in Ireland, the schools have brought in 2018 a wellbeing program. So it was only just a framework was established. Now that was to be delivered out by 2023. It still is in the process, but, will it get slowed down because of the whole COVID scenario? I'm unsure as to what it will. But from my point of view, I would think that, it's essential for children's imagination, for their communication, and just for their general well-being, that all those elements stay there as well. Like I had a senior student that described it to me that when she first met her friends, and she won't mind me saying so, when she first met her friends after lockdown, so these are in their late teens, they had spent obviously all of the time messaging each other. But when they actually were allowed physically meet, there was 5 of them together. And her words were, it was awkward to start a conversation. And that actually made me sad more than actually, I was like, oh my goodness. So that's your example of it. Can you imagine how many more are in the exact same situation and are feeling the exact same thing? So for me, that's like, do you know what? It's really important to tell people to talk, to tell people to have that face-to-face conversation, to actually, be creative. As you said, what's going to happen in the world if we don't have the imagination of those architects and of those engineers and of those, they're all so, so important. In Ireland, the performing arts at the moment obviously has been closed. So it's like as if we've gone back in history when many years ago theatres closed and we had the restoration period. I sometimes think 2 things. One, the amount of writing that has been done or is happening at the moment with artists is a huge amount. So it will be really, really interesting and exciting to see what follows once things do reopen again. It's important, even like I would feel it myself, I'm a person that would like to go to see a plays. Obviously, I would even go myself on my own. I'm one of those kind of people. I have no problem in just even going to see it just all by myself, as they say. So, to see plays, to go and, cinema, movies, all these things are paused and have been paused. And they're really important parts of people's lives. You described to any child, what did you do on a wet, rainy day? Oh, we watched a movie, and we had popcorn at home. So, or be it all to the cinema, whichever one. But they're just really important things that still need to continue for overall well-being of people and their mental health. You know what I mean? That they can do those things.
I agree. And I think it's interesting. A lot of people before COVID were saying that people had difficulty communicating and actually talking on the phone. People would prefer to do things by email. I know businesses, it's easier for email because everything is, written down as a written record. I get that. But more on a social aspect is like, I'll send a text instead of making a call. And now, like you're saying, it seems that people have been pushed even more so. And you would have thought that people would have been pushed more to have more contact or conversations, but we are creatures of habit. And if you get into the habit of staying in and not talking to other people, then that's the habit that you just get used to it. And, human nature is a funny thing, isn't it? Once we get settled into a routine, it's difficult to break it, So, for me, the arts, singing, dancing, movement, drama, all these things are so important because it's going to help us then reestablish and get ourselves back out into expressing ourselves in whatever way that is. And I was actually talking to my niece and I'd asked her what she had at school, and I said to her, "Oh yeah, are you not doing music anymore?" She said, "No, music has been banned." I said, "What do you mean music's been banned?" She said, "Well, we can't sing in case we spit over each other." And I went, What do you mean? And I know it's not, but how it's like how it comes out of a child now. I said, "Oh, okay," because I didn't, I was like, "Oh, okay." So children are already learning that singing could potentially be something that they could, hurt somebody else with spitting or whatever it is. And things like that, it's I think we have to have a look at what the long-term effect of that is going to be on children. I know we have to be safe as well, but it's all these factors that you forget about when you're a child, and these little things happen. They start to make and form the adult that you're going to be. And so now we're putting all these things in place that, to keep everybody safe and to do this and to do that. I get it. But also the ramifications of what that's going to look like. So Susan, are you doing sessions online then? Is that how you're reaching your
So I was the lockdown came for us here in Ireland around March 13th. So from there, we were midway through our second term of classes at that point. So what we took about 2 weeks out, and then we went online. So I went online with all the classes, saw people both individually and in group scenarios. Obviously, the youngest, which are 4 and 5 years of age, we were doing what's called show and tell. So this would be the starting point for any child doing public speaking. So they would have a favorite toy and they would have to talk about it for a few minutes and tell me all about it. So we were doing that with the younger age group. And then we were, working our way through with the teenagers. We're still on rather, very elaborate things. So we would have been doing from Shakespeare to poetry to, they were actually writing. And I'm actually in the middle of, I asked every student at the time, because they were all at home, so I gave them an acrostic poem and I asked them to write their own poem, and it spelled coronavirus. And they wrote their own poems and gave them to me. I'm actually at the moment compiling all the poems into a booklet that every student will actually have to keep, because I think it is so, now the poems were beautiful. Oh my goodness, they were absolutely gorgeous. So the younger age group did a poem called At Home. That was their acrostic poem, and the older ones did coronavirus. And the expressiveness that came out through the poems, oh my goodness, the expression of how they were feeling, what was happening around them, what it meant, like to read them, it is just really, really gorgeous. So I decided then that I'm going to put all these, because, there's something that you definitely would put in your time capsule. So I decided to put them all together in a booklet, and we're going to get them printed, and each student that wrote poems for it will receive the booklet to keep. And I just think it is so important, because they look back, like I said to them at the time when we were online, I was like, remember one thing for me at the moment. I know it's hard to be at home, and I know you can't see people and you can't do loads of different things, but remember, you are living in history right now. So when you're old and grey, and I would say to them, when you're old and grey, and I might be not so old and grey, that you must remember that you are going to be telling your grandchildren that I remember when, is what you're going to be saying. And I said, so remember that. And I said, write, if you can, journal it down. If they were at the age of where I was asking them to journal down just one line a day to actually remember back what has happened. And I know I did this with my oldest daughter, that I told her to journal it down, and she's just write one line a day. And I said, you will look back on this in years to come and you will go, wow. And I also asked them to write a letter to themselves. So dear me, from me, and of how they actually were feeling at the time of being at home, and what they may have learned or what they may have liked or disliked from being there. And I asked them to keep them and give them to an adult if you can't trust yourself to mind it. And in 10 years' time, open the letter and see what you wrote to yourself. Amazing. So they just, so we went online and we did finish out our term into June. We are currently, restrictions are still quite limited here in Ireland. So we would have had a period of where it was restrictions were lifted slightly. And now we are gone back into having more restrictions around sport and around activities. I know in the performing arts industry here in Ireland, they have actively been speaking to, we're between the Department of Education and the Department of Arts and Culture. So they've been actively speaking to both departments and getting clarification on what we as speech and drama teachers or in the performing arts need to do to go back to face-to-face, because whilst online is great and it's really, really, it's very, very workable and doable, I just miss the face-to-face, and I think so do the children. I think they just, I would have many parents said to me, Susan, they've had a wonderful time. You have kept, what one parent said to me, you were the light in their week every week. At, when it came to a Monday at 4:30, they knew it was time to log on to Susan. Yes, we have a half an hour with Susan. So she said, you were the light in their week. She said, I don't think you realized how much you were, but you really and truly were the light in their week for the time that they were at home. So I would, and then many of them say we really, really miss just physically. And I personally do. I miss physically being in a classroom with people and actually having that whole face-to-face contact. So we are hoping to go back. We have got the go-ahead from the department only last week that we can go ahead once they're social distance and they're in pods like the school's scenario. So we are hoping to do that. I'm hoping to do it in another 2 weeks' time.
That's amazing.
All going well. We will be back to face, and what I would say to children is I would go, you've now learned a new skill, which is that you can now attend a class online and you can attend a class face-to-face. You can do both.
Yeah.
And when you see a little 7-year-old logging on going, yeah, it's okay, Mom. And they are, kind of going, I'm on, it's okay. I don't need your presence for this. It's just, which the mom has to be in the room anyway. But it's just fabulous to see. You know what I mean? They're versatile and they're very adaptive. Like they really, children welcome change. I very much so. Maybe not for every child, but many children will actually kind of go, okay, right, we're happy for this. We'll do this for now, and then we'll see what happens next.
It was certainly great that they were given that option. I think that was tremendous that, that at least they had that option and they weren't completely isolated.
Well, that's what I felt was that I didn't want to isolate them. I didn't want them to, at the time when it initially happened, I know there was initial, oh, okay, right. It was a mammoth task. I absolutely won't deny that. But once it was established and once everything was in place, it was like, oh my goodness. I personally, I think it got me through lockdown just as much as it did the children and students. I absolutely loved it. You know what I mean? I really, really did. Hours, as I said, went by and I was like, oh, okay. Right.
Very good.
So really loved it.
Susan, maybe 2 things just to finish off. One, maybe we could at some point see a few of the poems that were written.
Yes.
Maybe.
If I get approval, yes.
Yes, we would like that. And our final request is that I know that you are teaching. I know that you can, I know your schedule is busy. I know you have some workshops, mini-me yoga workshops coming up. I know you have speech and drama classes coming up. So can we put in the comment box, I can do it. But can we put in your details so that people can contact you, if they need some advice, if they need a consultation perhaps as well, for children that are, retreating and they need some help with the speech and drama or well-being or whatever it might be, and so that we can make sure people can contact you. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine, yeah. No, I think it's really important because even from a mini-me yoga side of it, I would say even too, because I have online trainings going on at the moment. And I would say to all the participants, like as well as much as you're giving this to the children in your settings, you equally must remember it's also beneficial for you and you know what I mean. So the both parties are actually gaining from it, but it's really, really important to give as much of this as you can to children at the moment, because I would incorporate it into my drama classes, and I have done for several years, that we would actually, parts of what we do in mini-me yoga is incorporated into our regular drama classes, and that's really important. So yes, while I always say to people, if I don't answer the phone, it might mean that I am teaching, but as soon as I get out of that teaching, I will respond, and I always do respond. And yes, happy for people to, be it email me or phone me or message me, and I will help as much as possible. Welcome.
Lovely. I'll put that link in there now. So thank you very much for talking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure there's going to be a part 2, because probably lots more, that we're going to need to know a lot more in-depth stuff as we progress. I think as things unfold, and maybe we can have some top tips and drama tips and things like that for the next part. That would be amazing. Lovely. So thank you very much, Susan, and goodbye.